how do you drive cash flow, and how do you advise people today on, if they want to buy investment properties in Denver? what's uh what's your current approach?
Yeah. So I will say is the first thing you got to do is like kind of get your mind right in that you can't compare the deals that I got in 2017 to the deals that you're going to get in 2026. Just like just like you're not going to be able to compare the deals in 2035 as you can in 2026,
Yeah.
right? Um, you have to just buy what's available at this time. And so what's working, we've kind of seen a lot of things come and go through Colorado. But what's working the best right now by and far is a strategy called co-living. And so it's just like house hacking. And it's, you live in, you buy a house, you live in one room, you rent out the other rooms, and then you basically, you gather that income from the other rooms, you move out of that, and then you rent your room out, and then you've got a cash flowing property. It's
Mm.
one of the only ways we're seeing true cash flow in Colorado these days. However, if you really don't want to like live with other people, like understandable, we're still helping people buy, house hacks where they live in the upstairs and rent the downstairs on Airbnb, so they have their own separate space. And instead of a $3,000 mortgage, they're paying $1,000, right? That's still a huge, massive savings, and you're
Yeah.
still building wealth, and you're still buying in an appreciating market. So like, no matter what you do, house hacking makes sense. Like 100% of the time in any market at any time, like house hacking always makes sense. And if you're under the age of 30 or you're not financially free and you're not house hacking, like you're getting behind.
Yeah. And I guess I should back up because maybe some people aren't familiar with the term house hacking. But when you say house hacking, what do you mean specifically?
Yeah. So house hacking is simply that you buy a property with low percent down, typically 3 to 5%. In order to get that 3 to 5% down, the requirement is you got to live there for at least 1 year. So you're moving into your investment, and what you're moving into is producing income to offset your living expense. And that's essentially house hacking, is being able to pick up an investment property with low down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought up co-living because I've been talking about that as well as short-term and mid-term rentals. And, I hear people say, well, rentals don't work anymore because the traditional long-term rental in a lot of cases, when you're buying a single family house, the numbers don't work, in a lot of cases, especially, in higher cost markets like Denver. So then people are like, well, I just can't invest because, rentals just don't work anymore. It's like, well, yeah, that you know tried and true method might not work as well, but maybe get outside the box a little bit. So this co-living strategy, can you outline how that, like, I mean, I know you gave an overview of how it works, but like, what's the ideal type of property? If someone was like, okay, I want to start this strategy, what does that look like? And then what are some of the things people should think about? Because I think people start thinking, oh man, somebody's going to be living in my house, going eating all my food in the refrigerator, and like, what are some of the things people should consider?
Yeah. So first thing, the house. Typically, you just want a larger house where the layout kind of makes sense. So typically, we like to see 2,500 plus square feet, at least a 6 or 7 bedroom. Three bath is kind of like our baseline. Typically, you're not going to find a house on the MLS that has 7 bedrooms on it. Maybe you find one with 6. So instead, what you do is you find, okay, well, is there a 5 or a 4 bedroom house that has like a really large, rec room downstairs in the basement? Or like, is there a dining room that can easily be made into a bedroom? You kind of look for these like hidden bedrooms in the current layouts. And, we like to leave one common area. Everything else pretty much goes into a bedroom.
Hmm.
And so, typically, we want to try to get 7 or 8 bedrooms in these homes. And so that's kind of step one, is just kind of looking at the home and the layout and all that. Step two is you want to figure out, like, does the parking work? So, you want to see, hey, are you take that little yellow guy on Google Maps, right? Drop it right in front of the house and go look to see if there's people parked on the street. If there are, then it's probably okay to park there, right? Maybe you're on a corner lot, or maybe you're across the street from a park or something, right? So you just got to like make sure the parking situation is decent, and you're not going to like make your neighbors all upset by having cars parked in front of their house.
Got it. Okay. And so when you start looking for properties for people, like a lot of realtors that I come across will say, yeah, I can help you find a deal. And then what they mean by that is I'll set up an automated search for you that'll go to your email, and then you call me when you're ready to submit the offer, and so I can collect my commission, right? So it's like very hands off
Mhm.
help, so which is kind of what you alluded to, I think, in the beginning. For you guys, then, what type of service do you provide? Like, if somebody's looking to do this with you, do you go out and screen through deals and then bring them back? And what if so, what are you looking for specifically?
Yeah. So the way our process works and the way we teach it is, you're meeting, you have your initial appointment with any sort of potential client, right? And your whole thing is to show your client that you are the best person for them to work with. They hopefully agree and they sign the buyer's agreement, right? And so we'll put somebody on one of them searches that you just mentioned without a buyer's agreement. That takes us 2 seconds, and you can tell me what you want, and we're happy to go look for you. But I'm not going to go and screen all the properties on the MLS and deep dive on each one, and then send you my top 3 or 4. And if we don't have a buyer's agreement signed,
Yeah,
right? Like, I can't commit to you if you're not committing to me. And we've got a whole bunch of clients that are already committed to us, so we don't need to waste our time with the person that's non-committed. And so that's how we run our business, and that's how I encourage everybody to run your business. And so let's say you sign the buyer's agreement, and then okay, we're like, you and I are now working together. One of the first things I'll do is say, hey, let's try to find a time this weekend to go see some houses. I'll come up with a list probably by Wednesday or Thursday, probably Thursday, and I'll run, probably 4 or 5 by you. Why don't you do the same? You run the 4 or 5 by me, and let's pick the top 4 or 5 that we have between the two of us, and those are the ones that we'll go check out this weekend. And if any of them make sense, we'll make an offer. And
nice.
so you kind of guide them along that process, and it's a pretty seamless to go from step to step.
Yeah. And what is it that makes the top 4 or 5 for you? Like, when you're looking at potential deals, like where are you focused in on?
It just depends on the person, honestly.
Mm,
Like, I at this point, I know exactly who you are, what your goals are. We've had the initial call, so like, I can kind of put myself in your shoes and try to figure out what you need. But depending on what they need, right? Oftentimes, what we're seeing is location is somewhat big. The house itself and how nice it is, and the layout, the parking situation, like I mentioned, budget is oftentimes a factor, a limiting factor for people. And then, of course, the strategy they want to do. And so, we kind of take all those into account. And yeah, and then we'll, like, oftentimes what happens is, like, I'll find some houses and they'll find some houses, and the houses they find, like, they look good, but I'm just like, man, I know that layout. I've been in thousands of houses. Like, I just know that layout's not going to be ideal. Like, we can find you something better. And
yeah.
usually we're probably 80% of the houses that someone brings to me, I'm saying, no, I don't think that'll work for you. But I'm like, but hey, if you really want to see it, I'll show you. But I'm just telling you that I don't think you'll like it. And I think finding a realtor, and if the realtors are listening, being the realtor that can kind of treat every single deal that you're doing like it's your own, and just say, like, yeah, I wouldn't buy that one, will show your clients that you're not just chasing the commission, and that you actually care about this investment for them.
Yeah. And I think that's when it's so key to work with a realtor who is an investor who's done this before, because you bring 4 or 5 deals to an agent who's only been working with homeowners, looking for these beautiful, properties that are the most, I guess, visually appealing and emotionally appealing, but not considering the numbers, and have never used it as an investment. They might give you terrible advice, and say, oh, no, you should look at this one because it looks nicer. But you're looking at it from the standpoint of, no, I've been down that road. I've tried investing in that type of property, and these are the things that went wrong. Let me show you the types that actually work. I think that's
Mhm.
so invaluable. Can you maybe share a couple examples of deals that have been, that people have done recently that that have worked well, in terms of just like general numbers of, like, okay, what they bought it for, a location, like what you think each bedroom might bring in, and why it was a good deal?
Yeah, we can do one that I just did with a partner.
Awesome.
So yeah, there's a house hack kind of situation where this guy basically. So I partnered with somebody who went to go ahead and live in the home, and so he's house hacking it. And we turned a 4-bed, 4-bath into an 8-bed, 4-bath. And it was, the purchase price was 660, and we got a a lot of concessions. So we were able to basically pay zero closing costs. And then what I actually did was I increased my commission to like 6% as a realtor. And I took the additional what I would make outside of that transaction, and I put that towards the deal. So
Ah,
we actually came in with very little down, because he only put 3% down. I got an extra 3%. You can see how that math works out. So we essentially got
yeah.
the deal for almost nothing. And
Wow.
then we put probably 20 or 30 grand into it, adding bedrooms, just changing some things around a little bit. And we're expecting to get about 6,000 on the low end on for rent in the house, and the mortgage payment is 4,000.
Okay.
So and then that 6,000 is does not that includes utilities being paid for, right? So like
Got it.
6,000 for like 6,000 over that, not including utilities, or like utilities being paid for. Of course, we'll have some maintenance and capex and all that, but our true cash flow in this house is probably conservatively, $1,500 a month.
Wow.
And this isn't like it's a corner lot, big house in Arvada, which is a nice area in Colorado. Like, it's a great house, great location, and it's cash flowing us. So like we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so a deal like that, what type or how much does a bedroom rent for in that area?
So a master bedroom would probably go for about 1,000 to 1,100,
Wow.
and then a typical regular bedroom, whatever, 10 by 12, shared bathroom will probably go for 700 to 800.
Okay.
And then then there's also like if it's like a basement, small, like really, that might go for like 600, 650.
Wow. And these are they like working professionals or students, or who is it that's renting the bedrooms?
Usually they are working professionals. Usually they're younger, like, entry level kind of jobs, or just to give you like some concrete examples, we've got some people that work at the airport. We've got some people that work at like Coors Field. We've got some people that there's an engineer, a guy that works in a museum, guy that works at an aquarium, guy that works at a senior center. So it's like those kind of jobs,
Yeah.
like jobs that are, probably a little bit more soul work than like really making a high income. But we also
Hmm.
get some guys that, like I said, were engineers. They make great money. They're just smart and they want to save and they want to buy a house on their own someday. So like they're not gonna. They'd rather live in a room for $700 than an apartment for 1,500.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. And this is when I think it's so smart to not just universally apply an investment strategy across every market. You got to think through the markets in an area like Denver. Like, you're renting a bedroom, a master bedroom, for what a whole house could rent for in Indiana. Where where
Mm-hmm.
I'm at. So it's like it makes so much sense in a high cost of living area where rent's high. Housing, there's not there's a relative shortage of housing, and a big population center. Like, all the factors really lead up to making this work really, really well. And then, if you still want to do the long term rental single family strategy, then you buy in a much less expensive area. So it's like matching the strategy to the area, which I think is so smart. And not a lot of people do. A lot of people just
Yeah.
like pick a strategy and like, this is what I do, and I'm going to do this everywhere, or try to do it everywhere. So I think that's super smart. Do you recommend that investors become realtors? I know that's the route you took, but what do you what's your advice around that?
Um, I think I mean, of course, it's going to depend, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think it's worthwhile if you plan to do a deal a year to be a realtor, because I mean, think about it. Like, you'll save if you're buying a $500,000 house, you'll make a $15,000 commission every year, right?
Hmm.
And that will drastically reduce how much you got to bring to the table, especially if you're house hacking, all that kind of stuff. Like, so if someone's just starting out, I don't see why not, right? Now if you're already making a lot of money, and like taking the time to study for the exam and take the exam and do your own deal and learn real estate and all that kind of stuff, If that's not worth your time and you can go make more money in your current business or your current W-2 job, or like you just don't want to do that, then of course, then don't do it. Right. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a one give all answer, but I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I was like, I figured this out when I was pretty young, and I was like, hey, if I can save on that, then I can basically, I can basically buy houses with almost nothing down.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, and then when it comes to financing, that's another big question that comes up for a lot of people. How are you seeing most? I know you mentioned 3% down. How are you seeing most people financing the types of deals that you guys are purchasing?
A lot of people do them with, so if they're going to move in, right, if they're house hacking, it's 3-5% down owner financing, conventional financing, FHA, VA, that kind of stuff. Um, a lot of our, now that we're doing more, like I'm not house hacking anymore, um, but now we're buying co-living properties. So it's same idea, we're just not living there. So those are going to be the 20-25% down DSCR type loans. And so we're seeing either way there.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Does FHA still work for this strategy if you want to move into it yourself?
Oh yeah. Yeah. FHA doesn't care as long as you can make the payment
Got it.
and as
Cool.
long as you're moving in.
Yeah. Awesome. One other strategy that you outline on your website, and I recommend other people or recommend people who are listening to this go to your website. It's the FI. Is it FI team? Is that what it is?
Yep.
The FIteam.com. But there's a strategies tab, and when you pull that down, there's about 7 or 8 different strategies that are outlined there. So it's a great way to look through and see what matches your personality, because there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. But one other strategy is the BRRRR strategy. Are you finding, like, so just for people who aren't familiar, BRRRR is buy, rehab, refinance, rent, and repeat. So basically, the idea is you got to buy it cheap enough that you can put some money into it, build equity, and then refinance out your capital to do it again. Are you finding deals that can still work as BRRRRs in Denver?
Um, I think Burrs coupled with co-living, yeah.
Hmm.
But not, you're not going to pull out all your cash.
Okay.
Burrs are really hard. They're really hard. If someone comes to me and tells me they want to do a Burr as an agent, I pretty much say like, if you're really looking for a Burr, like I'm probably not your guy.
Yeah.
So you say a lot of your people that you talk to don't love working with investors. You got to be able to screen out like who's going to waste your time and who's not.
Yeah.
Almost all Burr people are going to waste my time, so I don't really talk to them. We do them, but I know I'm not going to waste my own time, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people have this idea of what a Burr is, or they read a book from 5 years ago that like really articulates what Burr can be and what the opportunities are. If they're not, if they're someone's going to need a Burr or flip and they're not experienced and have done a handful of them, then I'm probably not going to work with them.